wind howled across the tarmac of Earth's high-orbit flight academy, carrying with it the scent of burning ozone and old fuel. Lena Cross stood at attention, jaw clenched, the harsh sun slicing through the clouds above the camp's mountainous training complex. She had traveled across 2 planetary systems and sold half her family's hydro farm back on Mars just to be here. But as she stared into the cold, disinterested eyes of Commandant Arvin, she knew her time at pilot camp was already over. "You're not cut from pilot cloth, Cross," he said, flipping a report onto a metal clipboard. "Poor emotional discipline, erratic maneuvering patterns, and, let's be honest, your background isn't exactly elite." The words dug deep, but Lena didn't flinch. She wasn't raised to give them the satisfaction. The others stood behind the Commandant in silent judgment. Cadets from Earth's inner circles, from Jupiter orbit academies, all bred and tailored for military excellence. They called her the Martian Mutt, a half-joke that stuck from the first day she crash-landed a simulation pod and dusted herself off with a grin. "Sir," she said, voice steady, "if I failed the simulation, I'd like a full readout. The program spiked just before system failure." "We reviewed it," Arvin said, waving her off. "Technical error, or maybe you just panicked. Either way, your clearance is revoked. You'll be escorted off base by nightfall." The escort was 2 guards in oversized exo-armor, each twice her size, treating her like a stowaway more than a fellow pilot. As they marched her across the field, Lena stared at the hangars one last time, the sleek XR-95s gleaming like silver phantoms in the evening light, the control tower blinking with coded signals. She didn't feel shame. She felt robbed. Back. In her temporary quarters, Lena packed slowly, folding the single pilot camp uniform they'd issued her. She paused, looking at the insignia on the shoulder, a falcon in mid-dive, wings outstretched. It had meant something once. Now it was just another emblem of a club she'd never be allowed into. She left the uniform on the cot. The trip back to Mars was uneventful. No one at the academy looked her in the eye. By the time her ship detached from Earth's orbital loop, she was already a ghost in the system, scrubbed from the pilot camp registry like she'd never been there. Her father met her at the docking bay on Olympus Rise, the high city that hung over the Martian equator. He didn't ask what happened, and she didn't tell him. Just a nod and a shared silence as they loaded her bags into the rover. But something inside Lena had changed. Failure had never scared her. Mars didn't raise children afraid of falling. It raised children who learned to get up through layers of dust and gravity twice as heavy as dreams. What stung wasn't being kicked out. It was knowing they'd never really given her a chance. That night, long after her father had gone to bed, Lena climbed out of her window and made her way to the old fringe zones near the derelict mining sectors. It was where her older brother used to tinker with salvaged tech before the accident, where half the colony's junk ended up after being deemed too broken to matter. She stood on a ridge, looking down into the broken metal sprawl lit by the twin moons. Somewhere below lay wreckage, history, and maybe something they hadn't buried deep enough. They thought they'd grounded her. But Lena Cross had only just begun to fly. The Martian dawn crept slowly over the rust-colored plains, bathing the abandoned mining fields in pale orange light. Lena navigated the cracked terrain with a familiarity born of childhood. These ruins had once been the heart of Mars's industrial push, a bold dream of planetary independence that collapsed under the weight of bureaucracy and Earth's control. Now, the structures stood like ancient bones, half-buried and silent. Her boots crunched over scorched gravel as she reached the outskirts of Hangar 9, a forgotten structure half-swallowed by the shifting sands. The massive doors were warped, one side completely jammed into the ground. Lena crouched low, crawling through a gap in the rusted metal. Inside, the air was stale but dry. Beams of filtered sunlight broke through holes in the ceiling, illuminating a graveyard of machinery, gutted transports, cracked drone casings, and maintenance bots frozen mid-task. But in the center of the hangar sat something that didn't belong here, something that hadn't rusted, hadn't decayed. It was hidden beneath a tattered thermal tarp, but its silhouette hummed with precision and power. Lena pulled the tarp aside, her breath catching in her throat. An F-22 Raptor. It shouldn't have existed. Not here, not now. The last of its kind. Had been decommissioned nearly 70 years ago after the Second Lunar War. And even those hadn't looked like this. The body was sleeker, the edges almost unnatural. The material shimmered faintly in the low light, like it wasn't entirely solid. She climbed the ladder to the cockpit, expecting it to be gutted like everything else. But it wasn't. The pilot seat was intact. The controls were unfamiliar, still roughly human in design, but interwoven with a different logic. Something deeper, something smarter. As her fingers brushed the main panel, a soft click echoed through the cockpit, and the screen flickered to life. Text scrolled in a language she couldn't understand. Then it shifted. Translated. System awake. Pilot biometrics detected. Shade interface. Active. Welcome, Lena Cross. She froze. What? A voice filled the cabin. Calm, synthetic, but not cold. Pilot profile recognized. Lena Cross, age 24. Status discharged. Misconduct unjustified. Reinstating access. Lena's pulse spiked. You're an AI? I am Shade. Tactical hybrid interface. Originally developed by Section 7 during the Orion Convergence. Integrated with Terran Aerospace Technologies for testing. You are the first pilot to match compatibility thresholds in 22 years. Lena sat back, her mind reeling. She'd heard rumors about Section 7, classified projects involving alien tech recovered after first contact near Europa. But this wasn't a rumor. This was real. Somehow, someone had smuggled the prototype to Mars, buried it in a forgotten hangar, and let time swallow the evidence. Can you fly? She asked, barely whispering. Flight systems operational. Fuel reserves at 43%. External damage minimal. Repairs needed. Assistance required. She exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a relic. It was a weapon. A statement. And it had chosen her. For the next few days, Lena lived inside that hangar. She hauled tools from old mining depots, rerouted solar panels for power, and scavenged carbon sheeting for the wing's fractured edge. Shade helped her, displaying schematics, controlling microdrones, guiding her through repairs she'd never studied but somehow understood. It was as if the aircraft was teaching her, syncing with her thoughts. The movements felt natural, instinctual, like the F-22 was a part of her. One night, beneath the thin stars of Mars, she climbed into the cockpit and strapped in. Shade's voice greeted her with quiet certainty. Would you like to fly? Lena smiled. Let's wake them up. The sky above Mars cracked with thunder as Lena pushed the modified F-22 through its final atmospheric trial. The jet responded like a living thing, slicing through wind currents and microbursts with impossible precision. Shade's voice guided her calmly through the maneuvers, each one more complex than the last. Drift turns, vertical dives, corkscrews through Martian canyons. She wasn't just flying. She was fusing with the machine. Pilot synchronization at 94%, Shade reported. Trajectory control exceeding baseline projections. You are ready. Lena grinned, sweat dripping from her brow. It had taken weeks. But the F-22 was finally flight-worthy, reborn from rust, retrofitted with alien algorithms and human resilience. The AI and jet formed a single entity now, and with it, Lena wasn't just a pilot. She was a storm waiting for release. Back on Earth in the gleaming towers of the high-orbit Flight Academy, something entirely different was unfolding. Commander Arvin stood in the newly renovated command center, flanked by officials from the ECA, the Earth Coalition Authority, and the Etherian Corporation, the military-industrial juggernaut now funding the academy. Pilots were being reshaped into soldiers. Tactics were being rewritten to serve contracts, not peace. And no one dared speak against it until something strange happened. A sensor officer raised a hand from across the room. Sir, we're picking up an unidentified aircraft entering Earth's exosphere. Arvin barely looked up. Origin? No registry. No IFF code. Flight pattern? Erratic, but accelerating. velocity increasing exponentially. "Sir, it just broke Mach 9. Now Arvin looked. "That's impossible." The room dimmed as a projection lit up the holoscreen. A sleek aircraft pierced the blackness of space, descending at a controlled angle. It was too small to be a shuttle, too fast to be civilian, and too agile to be military. "It's heading for us," the officer added. "Trajectory pins it directly over North Quadrant airspace, our airspace." Arvin stepped forward, brow furrowing. "Launch interceptors, now." Miles above Earth, Lena watched the world curve beneath her. The F-22 shimmered with refracted light, the alien alloy rendering it nearly invisible to radar. But she knew they'd see her eventually. That was the point. Earth defense systems. "Active," Shade intoned. "Two manned interceptors inbound. Arming countermeasures?" "No," Lena said firmly. "No weapons. They don't get to say I came back to start a war." She dropped altitude, kicking in the afterburners. The interceptors flanked her within seconds, sleek black machines bristling with tech and arrogance. Lena smiled. "Let's dance." The jets fired warning flares and barked commands over open channels. Lena didn't respond. Instead, she pulled into a vertical climb, inverted, then spun down in a corkscrew spiral that cut between them. Her wake destabilized one of the jets, forcing the pilot to correct before crashing. "Caution," Shade warned. "Non-lethal systems only. Suggest evasive display, pattern Delta 7. Already on it, the F-22 performed a maneuver that wasn't in any flight manual. Banking, flipping, accelerating, and vanishing from radar before appearing again behind the second interceptor. Lena tapped the comm once. "Tell Arvin I'm coming." She roared over the North Quadrant airspace, directly toward the Academy's central airfield. Every alarm was going off. Anti-air systems locked on and blinked red across the field's interface, but none fired. No one knew what this jet was, let alone who was inside. Then the jet slowed, smooth as silk. The F-22 descended toward the very place that had once thrown her out like garbage. Pilots and instructors spilled from nearby buildings, staring into the sky. The silver phantom hovered, almost serene, before beginning its final descent. And in the tower, Arvin watched with disbelief as a ghost he had buried returned, faster, stronger, and wearing wings he never gave her. The roar of the engines echoed across the high-orbit flight academy as the F-22 descended, its alien-modified frame glinting like quicksilver in the late afternoon sun. Cadets rushed to the edge of the landing strip, their drills forgotten, their formation broken. Even the instructors stared skyward in disbelief. No aircraft on Earth moved like that. No known jet could hover that precisely, shimmer out of radar range, or outfly two of their top interceptors without even firing a shot. And then it happened. The landing gear extended, hydraulics hissing. Softly, and the F-22 touched down with a grace that no machine that size should have. Its engines whirred to a low hum, and silence fell across the camp like a heavy curtain. The canopy lifted with a smooth hiss. Out stepped Lena Cross. No flight suit, no academy colors, just a matte black pilot jacket patched with Martian dust, and a pair of old boots that had trudged through scrapyards more than classrooms. She took 3 steps forward, her eyes sweeping the crowd. Some cadets looked stunned. Others, especially the newer recruits, stared at her with something bordering on awe. The older ones, her former peers, wore confusion like a mask. Atop the tower, Arvin cursed under his breath and grabbed the intercom. "Security, detain that. Pilot, full lockdown. Now." But no one moved. Lena tapped her comm unit. "Shade, they're hesitating. Hostile intent is detected from Central Tower, but non-combatants outnumber enforcement units. Suggest non-lethal counter-protocols if engaged." From within the F-22's fuselage, a quiet hum grew louder. Small ports opened and micro-drones deployed, sleek glowing discs that hovered around the aircraft like a protective swarm. The Academy's automated turrets locked on instinctively, but failed to identify a threat. "Disable their targeting systems," Lena said calmly. A pulse of light swept out from the F-22. The turrets blinked, shuddered, and went still. Shade had disarmed them in an instant. From the far side of the tarmac, 4 security units in exosuits began advancing, weapons raised but unsure. Lena stepped forward again, lifting her voice so even those in the tower could hear her. "You said I didn't belong," she called out. "You said I couldn't fly, but I learned more out there, in the ruins you left behind, than I ever did inside your walls." The guards paused. One lowered his weapon. "You built this place to produce machines, not pilots," she continued. "You chose bloodlines over instinct, protocol over heart. But flying isn't something you teach in a manual. It's something you feel in your bones." The cadets shifted uncomfortably. A few looked up to the tower, waiting for orders that never came. Inside, Arvin was pacing. "She's got tech we can't identify," one officer warned. "Whatever that aircraft is, it's outside our classification. She could take the entire airfield apart. I don't care if it was built." "By gods," Arvin snapped. "She's not a pilot. She's a threat." Down below, the wind picked up. Lena didn't need to say another word. She walked back to the F-22, climbed into the cockpit, and let the canopy seal shut. Shade's voice returned, measured as ever. "Shall I lift off?" She paused. "Not yet." Then, in a deliberate, almost defiant motion, she turned the F-22 and began taxiing toward the Academy's ceremonial runway, the one reserved for demonstration flights and elite showcases. She lined up, paused at the edge, and engaged the afterburners. The sound was deafening, and then the F-22 took off again, straight. Up, wings tilted in a motionless hover, holding itself like a bird daring the storm. She didn't need to shoot. She didn't need to destroy. She had already won. Every cadet watched, and in that moment, even the most loyal to the Academy felt something shift. Something had changed in the sky. The runway still vibrated long after. The F-22 vanished into the clouds, leaving behind only a thunderous echo and the stunned silence of the crowd. No one moved. The cadets, instructors, and guards stood frozen, not by fear, but by revelation. What they had witnessed wasn't just a display of flying skill, it was a complete disruption of everything they believed about control, legacy, and who deserved to own the sky. In the command tower, Arvin stared at the monitor. His face was pale, eyes locked on the telemetry feed still streaming data from the Academy's airspace. Lena Cross's flight path defied known physics. Her maneuvers had bypassed their best protocols, and her aircraft, whatever it was rewriting their understanding of what human flight could be. "She's gone," said one of the officers beside him. "No," Arvin muttered. "She made her point. She'll be back." He was right. Hours later, just as the Academy began to resume operations under the shadow of her return, a message appeared on every screen across the base. It was encoded in an ancient military cipher, one not used since the days of the Europa Contact War. No one should have been able to access it. But there it was. A recording played. Lena stood in a dimly lit cockpit, the silhouette of the F-22's interface glowing behind her. "You trained killers, not defenders. You buried potential beneath politics. You broke me, so I rebuilt myself from your wreckage. And now I'm giving you a choice." The feed shifted to internal surveillance footage, never released to the public, of pilot camp board meetings, backroom deals with Etherian Corp, and deliberations on suppressing students from less strategic backgrounds. Lena's voice continued over it. "You turned flight into a privilege, not a skill. You turned talent into profit. Not anymore." The recording cut to black. In the hours that followed, the Academy spiraled into chaos. Investigations were launched. Etherian executives scrambled to perform damage control. The public demanded accountability. Cadets began to speak out. And at the center of it all was the name that had once been erased from the pilot camp registry, Lena Cross. They tried to find her. Search drones combed the sky. Surveillance satellites tracked every unregistered aircraft leaving the planet. But the F-22 was never spotted again, until 6 days later. A lone package arrived at the Academy gates, unmarked and silent. Inside was a single flight badge, the pilot camp insignia, refashioned from the same alloy used in Lena's jet. Beneath it, a message etched in stark, clean lines. "I never needed your wings." After that, rumors spread. Some said she was flying supply missions to fringe colonies under siege by pirates. Others claimed she had vanished into deep space, searching for more alien tech to restore. A few believed she was building a squadron of outcasts. Pilots like her, cast aside but gifted, each bonded with machines that bent the rules of gravity and reason. But no one could confirm anything. She was gone, a myth, a legend. And yet, things changed. Pilot camp restructured. The board was dissolved. Recruitment policies shifted. For the first time, applicants from Mars, Ganymede, and even the asteroid belts were accepted without bias. Flight criteria were revised to focus on instinct, adaptability, and resilience, not lineage or rank. The shadow of Lena Cross lingered not as a threat, but as a challenge. In the years that followed, a new generation of cadets arrived at the academy. They spoke her name with a mixture of fear and reverence. They studied her maneuvers, debated her tactics, and wore emblems modeled after her badge, not issued, but chosen. And above them all, in the wild blue no man truly owned, the